Hey, welcome to Clarksville Vibe the Show. I am your host, Kevin Kennedy Jr., Clarksville native, and we are just so excited that you found this podcast. We are getting tremendous, consistent feedback that the podcast is adding value to your life. If you have found some value in it, we would love for you to engage with us in any way that you kind of consume podcasts, either whether it's a rating, a review, sharing it with a friend, whatever you can do to help us increase our audience and tell this great story about Clarksville, Tennessee that makes it the best place to live in America. We are just constantly sharing stories about people who have great things going on, who have done great things in the past, and who are leading us into the future. And today's guest is just like that. She's really exciting. She is a great friend to anyone who knows her. And I do have to give a shout out to Christy Doofman, who made the introduction and made the suggestion to me to include her. Little did Christy know that I already had Rory on my list, but it is Rory Fundora of Project Yesu. We are really glad to have her today. Rory, thanks so much
for
joining
me.
us. You're very skilled, you're very talented. You got your hands in all kinds of things, but one of these things is Project Yesu. That is a passion of yours. And for those who are not familiar with it, I'm going to give you a softball toss right off of the front. What is Project Yesu and what does it have to do with Clarksville?
So Project Yesu is a local nonprofit or ministry that was started by my daughter, Mallory, back in 2011 when she was 11 years old. So Mallory, not born here, but raised here in Clarksville, at 11 years old, decided she wanted to help children in Africa. From that, Project Yesu was born. And here we are 11 years later, serving over 500 children. We provide food, medical and dental care. So there you go.
Right. Yeah.
Education. Yeah. We provide mentoring, counseling, and family services.
Wow. That is a laundry list. But what was the number of children again? I think that
over
needs
500.
repeating. 500.
Yeah.
So we are doing this from a dream and a vision that a young 11-year-old had over a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And this has been a consistent journey for your family. And along the way, which we're going to get into these details, but you have had people come alongside you, help connect you, help grow this organization. And this is 500 current children.
500 current, yes.
Wow. That is really impressive because I know what it takes to create something from scratch. And then not only do that, but the energy that's required to sustain an effort like that over the long haul. As your 11-year-old who had a great idea now matriculates through middle school and high school and now through college, and you've been, leading the charge, and now as she's become an adult, helping you lead in more official roles. But that is just a noteworthy thing, and we're glad that you're doing that from Clarksville.
Yes, everything is run
What
here.
school was she going to when she had that idea?
She was at Rossview Middle.
At Rossview Middle, okay.
She was at Burt when she started it.
Yeah.
Then Rossview Middle, Rossview High School,
Wow.
Austin P.
Yep.
And now she's in grad school at Penn State. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Well, Burt, what a great school. I went to Burt.
Did you?
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, I have a great memory of Burt. This is totally off topic, but I feel like when these moments come, we got to share them because people will resonate with it. But, so it's probably 1995. I'm in like 4th or 5th grade. But at Burt, they had scooters that we had in gym class. And so they would stack up 3 tires and you would play basketball, but you would have to pass the basketball on while sitting on this scooter, and you would pass it back and forth for each other. And then you would try to dunk it in the 3 tires that were stacked. But of all my years in recess and in any kind of education, that was the game. That was just awesome, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, squirrel off to the right.
Okay. Those are fun memories.
Yeah, absolutely. We really do have great schools here. So I do want to talk a little bit about Project Yesu and what it's doing now, but I think to maybe gain a little bit more understanding, the name. So you mentioned to me the name sometimes gets mispronounced.
Yes.
Because there's other words that look like it. Either it's Project Yes, it's Project Yeshua, but this is Project Yesu. So I'm curious, where'd the name come about? What did Mallory have to do with that? And what has made it so special that it has stuck and you've not entered any kind of rebranding efforts?
No. Yeah. Yesu is the local language, and that means Jesus. And Mallory's goal was to be the hands and feet of Jesus and to shine for him in this community that we were serving.
Wow. And what's the native language there where you serve the most?
So there are 2 languages, main languages. It's Luganda and then Lusoga where we are.
Okay.
So,
all right.
yeah.
And it's in the country of Uganda.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. So I guess if someone is wondering, it's Yesu.
Correct.
But that is the native language for the name Jesus. So As time has gone on, I'm sure when your 11-year-old daughter comes to you with this idea, any parent in that moment, there's probably a little bit of tension that's like, no, we can't do that.
A lot of that.
Or we're going to do this for this one season.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, as a parent, when your child comes to you with this big, grand idea, what were you thinking in terms of, do I really create something that is long lasting and have her be a part of this, really her entire older childhood into young adulthood?
Mm.
What was that process like for you as a parent?
Oh, in the beginning, we never thought it would turn into what it is today.
Okay. Yeah.
This originally started off as a simple Christmas wish. She wanted nothing for Christmas that year.
Yeah.
She just wanted to help children. And we thought, okay, this is great. This is selfless.
Right.
How amazing. Come the new year, here she comes, her little self with her little notebook and plops on at the table. And she said, and this is what I want to do this year. And at the end of the year, I want to be in Uganda. And I was like,
Okay.
You tell your dad that one.
That's a shift gears.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, I want to be there.
That was her goal.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we did it. In October of 2012, she set foot in country for the first time.
Wow.
And I have never seen my child more at home.
Yeah.
I mean, in the middle of a village, surrounded by children completely different than her, just completely 100% at home. And I remember Fernando, the first time I posted a picture, he said, she doesn't smile like that here.
Right.
Like, that's home.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great story. I mean, I just think my daughters who are at home now are 7 and 5, not quite that age, but still the age where they come to you with big ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're just living the day to day and day to day, and, to have the, care for your child, but also the kind of passion to help her reach those goals, I think is really awesome.
And fear. It was a lot of,
I can't imagine.
How do I do this?
Sure.
How do we come alongside of her and do
Yes.
this? And we could never have done that alone.
Yeah. Well, I am
sure.
curious, you kind of brought it up. How did you make the first connection in country in choosing Uganda? Obviously, Africa is a continent. Each country is its own culture in many ways. But how did Uganda specifically come about? And then how did you start making connections there?
So this all started from a group of Ugandan children that came to the church at the time. And I was
Okay.
working tech at church.
Okay.
So Mallory was stuck there all 3 services,
Okay,
hanging
fair
out.
enough.
And this group of kids came, and Mallory got to spend time with them and hear their stories.
Okay.
And that's what lit her fire. Little did I know 6 months later, this would, that wish would
Okay.
come. So when she first started this, we told her, you have to research. You have to look into how can you best help.
Yeah.
And she connected with 2 organizations on the ground. She spoke to their founders, emailed back and forth with them, and, decided how could she best help them.
Wow.
So at first it was simple donations, collecting donations for them. And then the first time we went in country is when we met with them, and then we started exploring areas, and that's when she found her calling there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you were telling me a little bit about the organization. In 11 years, that's really a long time. And people lose perspective of how much can happen in 11 years. But these are some of the things that you said. What started as a simple Christmas wish has grown into 500 kids. We've made mistakes. We've seen mountains move. We've learned valuable lessons. And so if I could tug on you a little bit, mountains moving, obviously that is a reference to scripture where Jesus says, if you have faith that is just this amount, then you can move mountains with it. But I'm curious, this is such a big dream. What are some of the mountains that have moved, if you can recall some?
Sure. There's 2 that come to mind, but I think my favorite one was in 2018.
Okay.
We were in country. We were leaving the village where we had just finished home visits and everything. And we're traveling down the road, and all of a sudden we turned left when normally we turned right.
Okay.
And I kind of looked at them and, where are we going? It's okay, Mom, don't worry about it. We kept going down this road. Our driver pulls into this plot of land. She jumps out and she goes, this is the future home of Project Yesu. And I went, what?
Yeah, what do you mean by
what are you
this?
talking about?
Right.
And she had told our driver, who was a friend of ours, she wanted him to find us land. Her big dream is to build a school in the village so the kids don't have to leave.
Okay.
And she told him, I want you to find us land.
Yeah.
So we did. He found her 2 acres of land. We walked that land. We looked at it. We prayed over it. We said, okay, what's next? She met with the owner of the property. He walked her around that property. So, 2018, she was 2018, she was all of 18 years old. And, she told him what her dreams were for that land. And he said, okay, if you can raise the money, I'll sell you this land.
Wow.
$14,000. And we had 6 weeks to do it. We raised it in 4.
In 4 weeks.
In 4 weeks.
Wow.
So if that's not
awesome.
Mountains Moving. And the whole time I'm saying, we're not ready for this. Project Yesu's not ready to do this.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, we are.
Wow.
And her big thing that she always says to me is, Mom, why do you worry? She's like, God's got this. And I'm like, ouch.
Yeah, thanks for the lesson, daughter.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, you'll be the mom now.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I would sure be. So that's one. You said there was two.
So one of our luncheons, Mallory had reached out to different performers to come in and perform. And Francesca Battistelli came and performed. And as she's performing, I was busy doing something. And all of a sudden I hear her starting to tell Mallory's story. And she said, I was so inspired by Mallory that I wrote this song for her. And she wrote the song Giants Fall, which is all about Mallory and her faith and her willingness to follow God's call.
Yeah.
And like the video for the song has pictures of Mallory in Uganda and videos of her. And so that was another one where I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So you made mention of this, and I think, people are probably interested to how the dynamics of some of these programs work. Other programs we may not have be so closely related to, an executive or a leader in the organization. But when you said the land is important so that kids don't need to leave the village, what does that mean? So when you're saying kids are they leaving their homes for, is this day to day? Is this for a long period of time, a semester, or how are they getting to where your services are provided?
Sure. So schools, unlike here, schools in Uganda are not free. Yeah. And for many of our families, there's no way they'll be able to afford for their children. Or they have to look at their 6 children and say, you get education and you get education, but the rest of you don't. And mostly it's the boys who are going to get educated and the girls are the ones that are going to stay home. So when we come in and we have a sponsor for a child and we send them to school, we work with good quality schools that are probably sometimes an hour, 2 hours outside of the district.
Driving distance.
Okay. And the kids stay in boarding school. And don't think boarding schools like what we have here.
Right.
They're, those schools that we have our kids in are good schools, but still no comparison.
Sure.
So our kids for months at a time are 2 to 3 hours away from home. They have 3 terms a year. They're not home with their families. They're not there to help their families with their responsibilities too. So it's a sacrifice for the families to leave their children. And I think it also creates a disconnect for our kids. They might miss the birth of a sibling or the death of a parent or a grandparent or something like that. So it's really important for us to bring the school into the village so our kids don't have to leave anymore. And also to help our families feel invested in their children's education too. Right. So they can volunteer at the school. They can serve the school in some way.
Yeah. So how far is this piece of land from the village that you're serving?
It is in the center of the village.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. So now are kids who are, where are you on this project? What's the timeline on it? Is there a school that's there now? This was in 2018, and these projects take a long time. So I'm just curious how things have gone since then.
As you can imagine, the pandemic set us back greatly. So we just about 3 months ago finished the completion of Project Yesu's headquarters on land. In order to have our NGO status in Uganda, we have to have a physical place.
Okay.
So we built our offices. We also have emergency housing. So when we have kids or parents that are in need, we have housing for them on that property. And that shares the same property as where the school will be. And we also had to go through the process of working with the Ugandan government and getting everything approved. And
the levels of bureaucracy.
It's daunting.
I'm sure.
It's daunting. But again, we've had amazing people come alongside of us in country that have walked us through these processes and helped us. And so about a month ago, we got final approval on our plans for the school.
Wow.
So now it's just a matter of raising the funds to get it.
Okay. And what does that look like?
$250,000 to build. U.S. dollars. Yeah. And it will be a school that will house 700 children from primary schools. So think elementary and middle school.
Yeah. And these are, so just so I'm understanding it correctly and so everyone listening can understand, these are children who live in the village, so they may be able to stay connected to their families on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
But they have no school in their village at this point.
None that we would send them to.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. So you brought up the pandemic, and you're leading this organization with 500 children who you're currently serving, and all of a sudden COVID hits. And COVID, kind of put us in stir crazy mode here, and schools were very unknown. Extracurriculars were very unknown. Programs that are not mandatory were very unknown. I'm curious, I don't have any frame of reference for it, but what did COVID look like in Uganda, and how was that different, and what was that like managing this from across the ocean?
it brought a whole new set of challenges. Uganda experienced the longest countrywide shutdown in the world,
Really?
the longest education shutdown in the world.
Wow.
Our kids were out of school for 2 years.
Wow. And that was kind of government mandated?
Government mandated.
Wow.
I mean, when COVID hit, they shut down the borders. They shut down travel in, travel
no
out.
idea.
Nothing could move.
Wow.
So
was this because of the significance that it had there, like a high number of cases, deaths, or is it just kind of government policy?
I think it was a little bit of both.
Okay,
And
fair
also
enough.
just they don't have the means to treat it and contain it the way we do
Sure.
here.
So they were really strict on it.
They were
Okay.
very, very strict.
Okay.
So we went into emergency mode at first, providing emergency food because parents, they couldn't leave the village. So if
Okay.
they didn't have means in the village to feed their families, they had no food.
Wow.
So we provided emergency meals. We created hand washing stations and helped with sanitization
Yeah,
of
that's
the
right.
village.
Yeah.
And so that was our first round. And then we ended up hiring teachers that had been unemployed during the
Okay.
pandemic to come in. And we kind of ran a little underground school for
Sure.
a while where the teachers were coming in and providing lessons for our kids.
Wow.
So I didn't know because we were so afraid that we talk about learning loss here. As an educator here, I knew about that.
Sure.
And can you imagine 2 years if we didn't do anything, our kids would have.
Well, I think it's a testament to your fortitude because, one thing I'll bring it up because I look at it from a parent's perspective. But if there was ever a time to say, hey, our commitment to this cause has kind of run its course. We are out-resourced at this point. And that was probably it. Mallory's not 11 anymore. She's, off into grad school and you're managing this from a distance. Of course, you've been directly involved with it for however long. But if there was ever a time where people would understand where operations started to dwindle and die down, it would have been global pandemic, and we don't have access to be able to provide the resources that we did. But I think it's your passion. You were never going to let that happen.
No, not if we
Project
could help
Yesu
it.
was not going to shut down. You just pivot and you figure out where you can help and you be creative and you create solutions for where can we serve right now. And then here we are, maybe 2.5 years later, and are things somewhat back to serving how they were there? Okay,
Everything's back
Wow.
to normal or
Yeah.
new normal,
Yeah.
I guess. And I'll say that the greatest blessing and all that too was watching our staff. We have a staff of 4 in Uganda.
Wow.
So nationals, we don't
Yeah.
we don't hire any Western staff. It's all Ugandan nationals, and they stepped up in such a huge way during the pandemic, and they really were like, okay, well, Rory and Mallory can't get over here now. We need
What
to
are we
step
gonna
up
do?
and we need to take
Sure.
leadership. And that was huge for them, I think, and empowering for them also.
Wow. That's really cool. Well, I know when you're growing an organization, when it goes from inside your family unit there, 2011, 2012, to what it is now with 4 people on staff full time, you're feeding, you're serving 500 children in all these various roles. Along the way, you can't do it by yourself.
No.
And you got to have some great people that are coming from Clarksville because they're right here with you. They know you. They know your vision. This is, not necessarily an organization with a footprint in every major U.S. city. A lot of their support and resources that are sustaining Project Yesu have come from here.
Absolutely.
And the people have come from here. So I'm curious, I don't hate to put you on the spot because we always leave somebody out, but we got to throw some names out there. And,
Absolutely.
who have been some key role players that have just given you encouragement at the right time, provided some resources at the right time, the right connection. Because if it's me, once again, I'm looking at it thinking there's a few times I probably would have tried to give up. But if it wasn't for other people telling us to keep moving, then, things would be different than they were today.
Sure. I would definitely say Mayor Joe Pitts and his amazing wife,
Really?
Cynthia. They're both from day one. Joe has been Mallory's biggest champion, biggest supporter.
What was Joe doing back in 2011?
He was in the house. So
that's right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I'll never forget it. Mallory, I think she was in middle school maybe by then. She got
Okay.
a beautiful, one of his beautiful handwritten notes that he's notorious
enough.
for. And from that day forward, they were best of friends,
That's right.
and he's an amazing support. We've had incredible board members come on for our board of directors. Ken Poindexter, Jason Barnhill.
And Ken is the owner of Muggsy's Coffee, which 2 locations now. I think one's over by the hospital, one's out on Fort Campbell Boulevard. So great business mind
Absolutely.
to have.
And he was invaluable for that.
Okay. So Ken.
Jason Barnhill works for Cornerstone.
Absolutely.
So another local.
Super smart guy.
Very, very. He was day one on our board of directors. Oh my gosh, you've put me on the spot. I'm going to forget somebody. Currently, we have Dr. Christie, of course. Yes. We've got Dr. Vicki McCarthy, who's a professor at Austin Peay, on our board of directors.
A longtime friend of mine who I know has been involved for a long time, Erica Trout.
Yes, Erica Trout has been awesome as far helping us with marketing and promotions and design, as well as just an incredible supporter. Yeah,
she was a year behind me in high school. Okay. We went to Rossview together. Funny story. This is rumor. I'm going to say it's rumor, and I will, unless she produces it, I'm just going to deny this is a fact. But she says she has video of me as a second or third grader, in a singing choir that my parents put me in, that she happened to be there at the same time. So if she's listening and she's watching this, I still don't believe it exists.
Me,
that's right.
I will post it.
That's right. But it's funny how this story, when this is your hometown, these are the stories that hang around. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Courtney Roy.
Yes. And Michael Bain, who was a pastor at Grace Community, which is where Mallory started all this from. We couldn't have done it without every single person who has come in our path.
And there's numerous people beyond everyone that we've just mentioned right now. But I do think that there are a handful of organizations with a decade-long tenure. That's the key to me, is this is not something that was started a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago and is still finding its footing. I mean, this is a pretty long time sustained organization that has needed resources and has needed connections, and Clarksville has provided it.
Yes.
And it is not something that is just directly benefiting our local community. I think sometimes, we can gain some interest of we know we're helping these people in our community. This is all the way around the globe. And we kind of have this command as believers or people of faith to build the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And that's to every ends of the earth that there is. And to have people of Clarksville catch on with your vision, to catch on with Mallory's vision and be a part of it and use their time and talent and sacrifices that they would make to, help make Project Yesu what it is today, I think is, I'm proud of this town for being able to sustain it. I don't know how many organizations are like Project Yesu anywhere else, so I don't have a frame of reference, but this seems pretty special to me. And to be launched from here and to be sustained for as long as it has, that is really, really cool. Well, let's talk about Clarksville itself just a little bit. You've been here a while. How'd you first get here again? I don't think I remember that.
19 years we've been here now.
Really?
And everybody always says, oh, you're military, right?
Yeah.
No, we weren't.
Okay.
It was all God. There's just no other way to explain it. We come from South Florida. I live
Miami, South Florida?
Fort Lauderdale, Miami.
Wow.
Fernando was born and raised in Miami.
Okay. Wow.
And we both worked for the school system down there, and he had just lost his mom, and we both kind of, out of sheer exasperation, just said, we just want to get out of here. This isn't where we want to raise our kids anymore. Yeah. And we both kind of went, really?
What do we do?
Are you sure? Where do we go? And that's why I just say it was a God thing. Fernando got the first job he applied for here. We got the first house we found. I mean, God was just putting things in place. And I have no doubt that we wouldn't be where we are today with Project Yesu if it wasn't for that.
If it wasn't here.
This never would have happened anywhere else. Yeah. And I think, that's one of the greatest things about Clarksville. Clarksville just has a servant mentality. I think it's like helping each other out. If they're back when we had the floods or when anything is happening, everybody just comes together and helps each other. And I just think that's ingrained in our communities. And I think Mallory, because she came here at such a young age, she was 3 when we moved here. And so she came up in it. She knew nothing different.
Yeah. And I don't know that I know much different, but you hear that among people who have either chosen to live here or came here for the military and decided to stay or whatever. This place is different. They help each other differently. And to me, it's just normal because this is, all I've ever known, all my family has ever known. I spent some time away in Memphis, but when you're 22 to 27, it's just, you're just having fun. Right. But, now it's just kind of like, this is who we are. This is what we do. I didn't know that it was different than it is in other parts of the country or other cities, but this is just who we are. And we're absolutely going to jump in and help. And, I remember my parents, when the war in Afghanistan first started, 2001, we saw a big deployment of troops and they were gone for a long time. Sure. The city they felt like it was different. I was just in high school and living my own, little selfish high school life and didn't really know, but I remember them getting involved in a couple of initiatives to support military families,
Mm-hmm.
to support, the troops, who were deployed at that time. It's just Clarksville just kind of wrapped their hands around them. And like you said, the flood has happened and several other things that have just been, tragic events or, individual tragic stories. And the town has come around and really
They
wrapped
do.
their arms around
Just
people.
rally together. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so, sometimes I'll ask people, what's our big message for this episode? We've talked about Project Yesu, about how it got started, about what you're doing now, about some of the dreams that you have for moving forward, especially with the land where it is, all the work that's gone to get these approvals and, kind of permits in place. We've got that. But as we kind of tie it all in, like what would you say is something that you hope our viewers, listeners could gain from your experience as a Clarksvillian and your experience leading Project Yesu?
I think just taking pride in like what happens here, what's ingrained in our communities here and in our values here can change lives on the other side of the globe.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody thinks, oh, little old Clarksville, even though we're not so little old
Right.
anymore. But how much change can come from one town, and like some kids never have thought about Africa or Uganda or anything like that.
Yeah.
And here's a child from here that took what she got from here and it's impacting hundreds of lives over there.
Yeah. Do you know how many kids cumulative that you've served? Do you have any reference for that?
I can't even add. It's probably close to about 1,000 right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All from one little innocent wish for Christmas, and parents who believed in their daughter and who had the determination and the fortitude to say, yeah, we're going to invest what we have, our time and energy and organizational skills, because she didn't have those at that time.
Still doesn't.
Yeah, fair enough. She's not going to listen to this anyway. You'll send it to her like, hey, listen to this episode. She's not going to listen. But you took the initiative and made that happen for her. And yeah, from this little town, what was probably 100,000 people then, now 200 and whatever, how many thousand people now, has created ripple effects across the globe. And it's something that we can all be proud of. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything you're excited about specifically in Clarksville's future that is happening?
I think I've loved coming from South Florida, coming
Yeah.
from a very diverse community, a lot of different cultures.
Yeah.
My husband being Cuban American, it's nice to see different cultures here coming together and being celebrated.
Yeah.
I think that's been really cool to see.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, we went to the Hispanic Heritage Festival.
How was
and
that?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just really cool to see how many different cultures we have here.
Right.
And
It was seemed like a really big event. I didn't know it was going on, not to my credit, to my shame. I didn't know it was happening, but I drove by and I was like, man, something is going on over there. And then I happened to see the pictures a couple days later. I was like, wow, that is really cool. Do you know if they've done that event in the past?
I think this was the second time.
Second one.
So yeah. And
but
it was
like you
huge.
say, as more people move here and more people connect and, different types of ways, it's important and it's valuable to cities to have opportunities for people to connect who maybe of, different ethnicities or different, families of origin or whatever it may be, like to have them, be able to celebrate the nuances and the gifts of their culture together is awesome.
Yeah.
And,
And it
maybe I'll
enriches
mark it on my
everybody.
calendar. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It does enrich everyone. I said, I need to mark it on my calendar and just go and take it in and learn.
Good
And
food.
I'm sure there is. Yeah. Dance me way out of the contest. I'm sure there was some good dancing down there.
was.
That's awesome. Well, one thing that you mentioned, that I feel like is kind of cool to talk about, sometimes I'll ask guests, what is a book or a podcast episode that you feel like is really been powerful to you? And you mentioned one, it's called When Helping Hurts. And I think it is, I have read the book, it's been 8 or 10 years. I can't remember exactly when I read it, but it shook me to my core, because you think about how you bless people around the globe differently when this book, and if I remember it correctly, it was when our attempts at providing resources, gifts, food, clothing, whatever, when it actually does more damage to these communities than we intend for it to happen. And they give different examples and different research studies and things like that. But I'm curious, when you read that book, because obviously this is a lot of what you do, how did it change your thinking, or did you actually change anything inside Project Yesu as a result of it?
We read it in the beginning, and it's been something that we've shared with all of our board members. Anytime somebody new comes on board, we give them that book. We're like, you have to read this. And it's just, it's completely shaped every decision we make in the programs in Uganda. And not coming at it as I'm American, I know best mentality. That's why we surround ourselves with people from there, because they understand that community. They understand the true need. What we think they need isn't what they need.
No. Yeah.
And we've seen evidence of that helping, and people come in with the best of intentions and great hearts and loving a community, but they don't understand the devastation they leave when they walk away.
Right.
And we have a grandmother that's in the village, and a group came in from a church somewhere in the U.S. and built her this beautiful home by Ugandan standards. Yes. And this grandmother takes care of 20 children, whether they're hers, neighbors, whoever's. And then this church built her a pit latrine, and then the church workers left. Well, they didn't help her with any furniture, so they're still sleeping on rice mats on the floors of this house. People didn't have really construction experience, so now this pit latrine that they build is now sliding down the hill. The government has stepped in and said, you either fix it or you're going to jail. She doesn't have the means to fix it. Right. So here's this group that came in with the most amazing intentions to bless this woman and to change her life, and they've ended up causing her so many more problems, and that was never their intention.
No. I remember an example from the book that stood out to me when I read it. And this was, I don't believe it was a culture in Africa, but it was somewhere where a group of Americans with good intentions, but maybe bad understanding, went and built a house, and they built a bathroom in this house that they constructed in the wrong location of the house, where culturally it maybe should have been on the perimeter of the house or on the edge of the house, but they put it in the center of the house. And the family that received it, it was almost like it's not functional for us, because we, lose credit or value or respect with our guests who come into our home. If our bathroom is here, you built it to your standards and what you thought was best, but you've actually hurt us, because this is not something that we can functionally use and that we would be proud of, because you didn't understand and value the cultural nuances that are unique to us. And you didn't ask. Right. You just came in and you built it the way you thought you should build it. And so I've really had to wrestle with it, as a dentist, and, hearing you talk about providing dental care for children, I've kind of had to wrestle with what is the best way for kids who are in underserved areas to receive dental care. Is that me closing my office here for a week and asking all of my employees to stay home for a week and not serving the people here for a week, going over there and really taking away work from where there might be a dentist who is there 51 weeks out of the year, and I come in and I provide free dental care. So now the residents of that area are counting on free dental care once or twice a year. And so they will forego the dentist who is there because, there's just nuance to it, and there's not a right answer. And it's just, I think the book helped me realize it's just something that I need to think about.
Absolutely.
And for me, sometimes it may mean supporting the local dentist to be able to provide the same services that I could do. And I might actually be able to stretch my dollar a lot further when I don't consider my travel costs, my lodging costs, all of these costs that go into it. Those same dollars, if I can pump them into an organization or into a community with the people who are in that community every time, and they know and understand all the nuance and all the strengths of that community, sometimes it probably gets stretched further. And that's why I think you relying on people who are on the ground for people there, full-time staff, is just such an amazing thing. So when you mentioned that book, I think is awesome. When Helping Hurts is the name of the book. I have no idea who the authors are, but it's worth a read, especially if you are interested in global or international missions of some kind or charity of some kind. It is
I think even local, even domestic, you still have to understand fully what you're serving.
What are you serving?
The clientele you're serving,
Well, I'm going to transition and go to the lightning round. These are easy questions. So it always makes everybody nervous. So these are too easy. Your first job?
My first job, I worked in the pharmacy.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like in a local retail pharmacy
Just like
or
a
something?
little small pharmacy.
Nice. How'd you
mom and
get
pop
connected
shop.
with that?
It was like close to the house. And I
Okay,
was
fair enough. Yeah.
15 looking for a job and
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Your most prized impractical possession. So not something super sentimental, but like, hey, if my house is on fire, what's the most ridiculous thing that would be really important to me if I could grab it?
That's a hard one.
I know.
You said that's easy. I can't think of one.
Well, I guess you got to think of it now.
My pictures. I mean, that'd be the one thing.
Right.
But that's not impractical.
No, that's super important. I have, it is my job in my house to have multiple backups on different things. You know, my wife doesn't keep up with the technology. Pictures are her number one love language. Whoever wrote that book, like did not include, there are 6 love languages. Pictures is the 6th one. And that is what belongs to Anya. And, I have, many times been very afraid of what would happen if I lost backups or access to something, or what would happen.
Yes.
All right. Last question. You can make one Project Yesu fundraising pitch to anyone in America today. Who is like, oh, if I could just get them to hear about what we're doing.
Oh, anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone can help. Everybody thinks, well, I don't have that big dollar to donate.
Sure.
To give $5, give $10, because if 100 people give $10, that's a major impact.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how can people get connected with you? That's a great question.
Yeah. ProjectYesu.org is our website. Yep. You can find us on social media. Mallory answers all the messages and comments and everything. Nice. So if you ever want to talk to her, she's there.
Nice.
But yeah, our website tells you all the ways that you can help.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much. This has been fun. Good. I think it's been adding a lot of value to the people who check in. My plan is to touch on several nonprofits, and this is one of the first ones that we've done. So it's really exciting for this to be launched out of Clarksville. And to me, the most impressive part is just the duration. It is very impressive to build this program and serve lots of people, but I think there are a lot of people with a lot of talent and enough resources and enough ambition to create a big program. It is the passion and it is the care that it takes to sustain something for 10 to 11 years that I think makes it so unique. So congrats. You're amazing. I don't know, what do you say other than we're just, super thankful that you're doing it. And if anyone wants to connect, definitely reach out to the website, reach out to Mallory on socials, however you do that. So
all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. We are so thrilled that you're once again making it in our Clarksville Vibe community, allowing us to tell stories about people like Rory, her family, Project Yesu, that you may not have even known was going on right here in Clarksville, serving across the globe, 500 kids in their care right now, across all of their various programs. These are the stories that I get excited about sharing about my hometown, about what makes this place the best place to live in America. Hey, scroll back through all the old episodes. I believe this is episode 22, 23, somewhere around there. We've got some really good ones in our past. And if you're just now catching the show, make sure you hit like, subscribe, however you can catch all these as they come forward. If you found value in this content, I know you'll find value in the others as well. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.